Guys, so we're going to talk about German roach treatment, not so much biology or products. We're going to show you how to do it in a home, in single. Right now, this is a residence, a house, but the same thing applies for multifamily places, apartments, things like that. All right. So first, we want to make sure that we're ready, that we have everything that we need. We're prepped. You have your headlamp. Everybody should have a headlamp. It's very useful. That way you always have two hands you could be working with. You also have your flashlight and multi-tool that we'll be using for things. You know, your flashlight and multi-tool. Also, you have that pouch that we gave everybody. As you can see here, we have the baits that we need, different things in the bag. We got your 565 and your Delta Dust. All right, and this pouch is very important because it helps us keep things here. We don't want to put things on the countertop. All right, we don't want to put any kind of chemical on here because they're probably going to be using it. Most people aren't going to just clean up. We want to make sure that we're being safe as we're doing everything, and that's what the pouch is for. Obviously, we have our B&G right here that we're going to use. And we're going to use our temperate or suspend or demand or whatever we need to use, and we're going to use Archer, which is our IGR that we use on all German roach treatments. Okay, guys, and very important, always make sure you have your vacuum. All right, that's very important. Every German roach treatment needs to have the vacuum inside the house or apartment when you're doing it. Every single one. All right, so now that we're prepped, we come inside the house, and first thing I usually like to do is I like to talk to the customer. See what they're seeing. Ask them where they're seeing them at, if they're just in the kitchen, if they're seeing them in the bedrooms, in the bathrooms, different places, in the living room. Sometimes you have to go check the couches and those coffee tables, end tables. Same thing with bedrooms. I've seen them in not just the bathrooms, but I've seen them at the the nightstands next to the bedrooms, next to the beds as well. So make sure that you're asking them just to get a general idea. Now, we don't want to always go just by what they say. That's why the next step after we've talked to them is we're going to inspect. So now that we've talked to the customer and found out where they're seeing them at, to where their activity that they've seen, we want to now do our own inspection. So before you do the inspection, you want to have this guy handy, this guy ready. It's the vacuum. As we're finding the roaches, we want to vacuum them up. So be ready to turn it on. I usually like to connect it before, find a good middle spot in the kitchen to plug it into, and then just have it ready. So as you're finding them, you're vacuuming them up. You're eliminating any roaches that are competing for the same food source, the same bait. And then you're also potentially eliminating any eggs or uthicas that are attached to any of the females as well. So make sure you have this ready. Definitely very important, not just important, a absolutely necessity when it comes to any kind of German roach clean out and any follow-ups as well. Okay. So you want to inspect the cabinets, right? Upper, lower cabinets. You want to find out where they're nesting. So good places to look for is next to the appliances. So stove, next to the fridge, the ones next to the dishwasher. These are the ones where typically are going to have the nest, the heavy activities, because that's where they're going to be hanging around underneath the sink, because that's where you have the moisture, the food, and all that stuff. And obviously all this is an area where they can live, a good safe place for them, dark. So we're going to show you how to inspect one of these real quick. Okay, so when we inspect this cabinet, especially the drawers next to the appliances, we want to make sure that we're getting the areas where they might be nesting, not just what's visible, right? So what I like to do is I like to pull the drawer out as much as I can. Sometimes these drawers can be a little bit tricky depending on what people have in there. So in this case, it's like that, but you can still get underneath it. The reason why you want to remove this is because in these corners right here, in this case, you have these stoppers, I guess. But usually there's a triangle lip that's there, and they love hanging in those spots because it's right there in the back. It's dark. It's close to everything else. They're just going to be just congregating right there. And how do we know that there's a nest there or they're there is by their droppings. If you don't see them there, but you see droppings all around the edge, then you know you're dealing with some roaches. All right, so if you see them, then you grab your trusty vacuum. You're going in there and you're vacuuming all the ones that you're seeing all underneath here. If you see them here, you vacuum them up wherever you're seeing them at like that. That's the best place to do it. Now if you can't for some reason get back there, you know, baiting the edges of these drawers is an option as well. So feel free to do that as well when you're doing it with these drawers. Get the edges right here as well. I would probably do both just to be on the safe side. The bait is what's going to be the thing that kills these guys. The bait, placing the bait as close as where their nest is. That's why it's important to inspect, because when you know where the nesting areas are, then you know where you need to treat. You could do heavy up here, but if the nest is down here, then what you did up there isn't going to be as effective. It's going to take longer. It may not even get rid of them. You got to put the bait right in front of their faces if possible. Another area that we want to inspect very thoroughly is underneath the sink. You know, we've talked about them having food, water, shelter. Great place for them to have all three underneath the sink. You know, the warmth from the hot water. They're going to have water from the water, obviously, and they're going to have food, garbage disposals right there. Things drop, so they're going to go. Sometimes these seals just build up with gunk and everything, so it's easy for them to find different things to eat just in this area. Very, very big hot spot. So another thing you also want to use is your knee pads, guys. We provide them for everyone. Use them. They're going to make this job a lot more comfortable. The more comfortable you are, the better service you're going to do, because you're not thinking about that pain from the knee, from being on your knees. So, you know, make sure that you do use them. They're in your truck. Everybody should have one. We handed them out a while back, so make sure that you do have them. Okay. So then you're going to go underneath here. Again, have your vacuum ready, guys. So as you're inspecting and you're checking on things, again, those corner spots you want to check, make sure that you're seeing them. You got your flashlight or your headlamp, and then as you're seeing them, you're vacuuming. But one spot that a lot of guys miss is this front spot here, guys, but on the other side. So you want to stick your head in and you want to check. Now I personally like to come from this side and check that side, and then I come from this side and check the other side, because I've been where I check up above and the roach falls on my face. So don't want that to happen, especially when you're putting bait. I usually like to go the opposite end here. Make sure I check that corner, get to the bait there, bait there, bait there. All right, so bait those top corners for sure. Everybody stores different things underneath here which can provide food, water, shelter for the roaches. So make sure you're inspecting, vacuuming, and then we're going to treat. So we want to put bait in the areas that we're finding them in. I always like to put bait up here just to be on the safe side anyways, and especially with those corners, because I know that if they are retreating from another spot, or if they find this spot, then they're still going to be finding bait in areas where they just normally go. Okay guys, so now that we've talked about inspecting and we found where areas that we want to treat, let's talk about treatment and what we're going to use for treatment. So we have several different products. Most of them are going to be on your belt here, your handy belt. So obviously we have your FC Select, which is your main bait that you're going to use. This is a gel bait. You have also your Avert. This is a dry flowable bait. Then you also have your flushing agents, 565 plus, with a handy needle. Make sure you use the needle. It makes it a lot more accurate. And then you have your Delta Dust, your bulb duster. Make sure that you use that in those places as well. While you're placing these, you have to make sure that you do not cross-contaminate them, because they tend to cancel each other out. So wherever you're placing the gel bait, don't put any flushing agent until you want to use this first. Wait for it to dry if you were going to put in the same spot. So this is good for flushing them out, but then you want to wait until this dries. It does dry pretty quickly, but make sure you wait until that to dry to apply anything else. The dry flowable bait, it's dry. It's kind of like dust. So you want to make sure you put that in a specific spot. Same with this guy, in its own specific spot. Make sure that you are using also the Delta Dust in its own spot, because it will cancel the gel bait and the dry flowable bait. So make sure that you are using it in its own spot where you are using it in. Okay. And let's not forget about the BNG as well. The BNG, you're going to have typically tempered FX, and you're going to have Archer IGR. Okay, so make sure that you got those two mixed. The temperature is normal rate, and the IGR for German roaches is 2 ounces per gallon. So make sure you have that ready as well. Okay, so let's show you where to place these guys. All right, so now we're going to move to treatment and showing you how to use the tools that you have. In this case, we're going to talk about Max Force FC Select. So guys, this is a gel bait, okay? You have your dust, your sprays, and all the stuff. Obviously, they can kill roaches, but this is how you get rid of them, is with baits. So and you want to use your Max Force FC Select and get underneath the sink. We're going to show you certain places where you can place them. Again, we have our knee pads, makes it nice and comfortable. And like we talked about these hinges, guys, you want to place just a pea-size drop right where they might be, or they might come later. So just like that, pea-size drop, just like that. No need to do any like lines or anything like that. That's not needed. Pea-size drops. That's all you got to do wherever you're baiting. That's how you want to place it. So as you see here with the pea-size drop, you know, you want to do several pea-size drops throughout the whole area. You don't want to do, you know, big drops here. It's going to be significantly more effective if you just have much more pea-size drops. So if I'm looking at this sink, moderate infestation, probably going to go 3 or 4 here, 3 or 4 here, and then throughout the whole thing, probably putting about 15 to 20 pea-size drops in about 15 to 20 different areas. Not putting just 3 or 4 big drops. It's going to be significantly more effective if you just do small drops throughout the area than just big ones here and there. Okay, so just like I said, those pea-size drops, just want to get in here, right here, nice corner, pea-size drop, and then right here as well. Again, 3 or 4 spots just throughout this whole area here, not lines. This is where they're going to be hanging around. That's how they're going to feed. Okay, especially if you see them here, this is a very commonly missed area. So you want to make sure you stick your hand underneath here so you can see where they're at, and then just place the bait as needed. All right, so now that we've placed bait here, just kind of want to go over the other places that you can get to, or you not just can get to, but you want to get to. All the plumbing access points, guys. Roaches are going to be behind that wall. They're going to be coming out, so make sure you place it, even certain places on these pipes, like around the garbage disposal. They're going to like around there, but you want to definitely get back behind there, but where the plumbing access points are, and then get up in those corners, guys. They're going to be up in those corners, like those little things like that. Anything that's holding things, where they can get behind even more stuff, hide. Look for those, those pepper droppings. So make sure that you find where they're nesting and then treat accordingly. Make sure you're only using bait, okay? We don't want to cross-contaminate. Dust and sprays and things like that can cross-contaminate. We'll make sure that it doesn't work. So make sure wherever you're placing the bait, that's the only thing that you're doing. The dust is only for void. So if you dust here, it might puff up and contaminate the rest of the area. So make sure you're only using baits, and then making sure that nothing else gets on them, because they will not go to them. They will not eat it. Okay. So obviously when it comes to these countertop appliances, as well as any appliances, you want to focus on the motor, the part where it's warm, where they like to hang around. That's where they're going to be nesting for sure. So you want to look at all these areas, all these appliances, and try and figure out what's the best way to get to that point without, again, contaminating any of the things that is going to be there. So when it comes to like a coffee pot, maybe you remove the glass part of it, disconnect it, try and find, things underneath it, If there's voids that you could stick the gel bait in there, that's what I do. These little holes here. And know that they're probably going to be around these electrical wires. A lot of times that's how they gain entry to the appliance. So looks pretty safe there. Nobody's really going to touch it. With the needle, easily get into there. Motor's probably going to be somewhere there. And if not, they'll typically will find it as well. With a Keurig, it's going to be a little bit trickier, but you want to find areas. Maybe you want to lift this up, obviously where the water's at. These water containers typically come out, so maybe find ways, again, that you're not going to contaminate any of the water and everything. You just kind of have to use the best possible logical places to place this bait where you're not going to contaminate anything. Don't be afraid to use these on the countertops as well, guys. If you can't do something with it, but that they're heavy around here, Then let's place the bait, just a couple drops, you know, a couple drops like that. Sometimes even entice them, I do a couple drops like that here, just to get it going in here. And then I close it up. And if I don't want to contaminate anything, just place it behind where I think it's going to be at. Obviously you have the coffee grinds there, and you can just easily place the Keurig back there and they can't even see it. So that's why it's a very important tool. Glue boards, you want to try and figure out where they're at. You could place glue boards and say, look, leave them there, we're going to come back and just kind of see where the activity is at. That way we could figure out where to also focus the bait up here on the countertops as well. All right, so let's talk about the dishwasher. One of the most common areas where they love to go. As you can see here, the heat, this is one that was drying their dishes. The heat from it, it's going to be all on these edges, the water, the food. Usually they're close to the sink, which is also close to where there's food as well. So you want to be able to treat it. Now, one of the best things to use on this is 565. As you can see, there's voids right here. I mean, I could put my almost my whole hand in these areas. And this is where they're going to fill up, nest, and they're just going to come out, and then they start infesting the actual dishwasher. They get inside this stuff, they get inside here. And so we want to try and kill as many as they can, again, without contaminating anything here. The heat, the water is just going to wash out our stuff, you know. So one, there's no point in doing that. And never, even though a customer asks or begging you, please never spray or put anything in here. Some customers will ask that, but this is not going to be beneficial to them, to getting rid of the roaches, anything. They're going to be all on the outside, right? So 565, you want to do in short bursts. And this is why the needle comes in handy here, the little straw. Just short burst. And this is going to go all the way to the outside. So if they're there, this is going to flush them out. That's what it is. It's a flushing agent. So as they're getting flushed out, I got my my vacuum ready. And to vacuum anything that I'm seeing as I'm opening them as well. Before I even did that, I'm vacuuming anything here as they're coming out. That way also giving them time to get the 565 to dry up. Then what I like to do is I get some of this gel bait. Now here it's hard to do it because there's this void and it just will be hard to do that. But if you see like a wall like here, never a bad idea to put a couple dots here, dot here, and like that. Also, you see this granite, guys. This granite typically has a little lip. All right, so you want to put the needle right in between that. A couple drops, okay? Again, this is where they're going to be nesting. They're going to be using this whole thing to run across the whole kitchen. So place some drops here and there, right? Not a bad idea to put some drops here at the very top, okay? Just at the very edge. Give them some food to eat. They're hungry. And then lastly, once the 565 is dry, and you feel like it's dry, then you grab your avert, your dry flowable bait. And that's why also you want to just do short bursts and move, because then you do the avert, about 2 or 3 dust puffs, and you're good to go. All right, now we've given them a flushing agent, bait on the edges, and just the avert you'd be surprised how far it goes. It's going to go the whole way of that dishwasher. It's essentially going to cover that whole top and drop a little bit in the back with this avert bait. It kills them on contact, and it also is food for them as well. So it works twice as good, and that's how you do a dishwasher. All right, so let's talk about the pantry. All right, pantries are hit or miss. Sometimes, for some reason they don't get infested and the rest of the kitchen does. Most of the time they're going to be in here. Why? Because this is where there's, as you can see, food. So a lot of things aren't completely sealed all the way. You just have cereals, you have boxes. They love boxes. So even though things are sealed, like cereals, grains, flour, all that stuff, they will get inside the boxes. So we want to make sure that we treat this as well. But again, we don't want to contaminate any of their food. And we also don't want to leave bait and everything everywhere showing, because they might have guests over, and just, we want to be professional about it as well. So what's your best friend when it comes to this? Again, your MaxForce FC Select. So you want to find and get the edges. So move things to the side. I find right here there's actual a lip that falls down. This is perfect for this. Right, because you can get the bait right inside there. So then you just grab your FC. Again, maybe a couple pea-sized drops here, just like that. Get that in there. And I would do that in every single shelf, just kind of move things around, you know, then you're fine to move it back. Now, a lot of times in these pantries, especially these small ones, you got these hinges right here, you know, they'll be on here as well. So again, in the back part of it, a couple pea-sized drops, just like that. Just like that, guys, right there. The one spot you want to look is on the edge of these door frames. So in these small pantries where the pantry is just slightly bigger than the door frame, it creates this void right here where roaches will love to hang around, again because it's dark, close to the food. They'll be all up here at the top of the door frame, everywhere, just hanging around this spot. So you always want to make sure that you stick your head in. You want to check that spot first. If you see the roaches, you just want to put, again, pea-sized drops just where you're seeing the roaches, and make sure that you treat there, and you always check in whenever you see a pantry. All right, so we're going to talk about public enemy number one when it comes to roaches. This guy right here, right? The fridge. So this, you could do the great job in a house, apartment, whatever, but if you do not focus on this, which is the number one place where they come and they infest, and once they come into the kitchen, this is where they go in the most every single time, is the fridge. So you want to make sure that you are inspecting and treating every single time. Even if you're not sure, maybe you see a couple dead ones, still treat, because if they go from anywhere else, they will definitely come here. So we see this fridge, we see that there's stuff here, so you want to make sure that you remove the things first. Doesn't matter if the customer tells you, oh, don't worry about it, oh, it doesn't matter, you know, just remove it, because even when you think you'll be good, that's when you break something. Maybe it will be a glass, maybe it will be a bottle. People put alcohol bottles in here, and that's going to be not so fun to clean up. So make sure you do remove everything from here. So now that you clear everything from the top, you want to try and move it. Now, some of these fridges, guys, they have not been moved in a long time. Depends how old the fridge is. Could be a decade, could be more. So every fridge has wheels. But what happens when they don't get moved is they get locked into place. You have water and things that even more so make it more locked up or just stuck on there. So whenever you're grabbing, make sure it's firm, but you're also being careful. Sometimes I like to even put my foot in front to make sure that I don't push it too fast. And you just kind of slowly move it. And now what I like to do is I like to stop here because I got a little bit of space, and I come over here and I see how much water line I have. Some hoses, they'll go all the way out and probably to the living room, and some hoses only have just a little bit of space, and depending on the, you know, the location of the fridge in around the countertops and everything, you'll have space, maybe you won't. So this one, in this case, we have plenty of space, so I feel safe. I got my vacuum ready, and then I start moving it slowly, because you always want to be safe. And as I'm seeing the roaches, I'm turning it on and I'm vacuuming everything up, making sure that I'm getting as much roaches that I can. Even the dead ones, guys, they're going to feed on the dead ones. And also that's going to help us know on the next visit how much better it is, how much worse it is. So go ahead and vacuum everything up here. You want to check underneath there. You want to check the outlets. You know, just vacuum all the roaches that you can, and then you could proceed to treatment. Okay, so now that we've vacuumed all the dead roaches, live roaches, everything we're ready to treat, we're gonna start with the fridge, all right? So a lot of people have this cardboard backing, they have a metal backing sometimes, but this is inside here is where they're gonna be hanging around, right? So we still have our vacuum ready, and I will unscrew here, just on one edge here. If it's cardboard, sometimes when it's metal grates, they have grates not just here, but they have it throughout, just so that I can get into this spot here, okay? And what I want to do is I want to grab, again, the 565 because it's a flushing agent. Again, just in bursts. So I put it in here, A couple bursts going both directions. Same thing in here. Burst and burst. Okay. So have my vacuum ready so that if anything comes out, I'm vacuuming them out as they're coming out. Okay. All right. Then I'm gonna grab again my bait. All right. The FC Select, and I'm gonna start with baiting like we talked about. The granite, that lip there. You know, I could feel it. As you can see, my finger just kind of goes up in there. So again, pea-sized drops, pea-sized drops, and I might even go a little bit down on the edge here. All right, then you got your outlet cover right here. Now because this is connecting an appliance, maybe you don't want to disconnect it and take it off. So maybe just one here, and maybe one or two underneath at the bottom, just like that. We have another outlet, or here is a switch. And this happens to be loose on us already, so let's just put a couple drops of bait in there, just in case. All right, so we have that like so. All right, so then I'm gonna grab my B&G. Okay, so I wanna grab my B&G here and make sure I essentially paint the area where the fridge is going to be. So we know that the fridge is going to be here. It's a little bit of a wide fridge. Sometimes you can even see the outline of where the fridge was, so you can use that as your guide. And then you just want to quick. Now you don't want to make a puddle. You just want to make sure you spray the area that the fridge is going to be at. That way, when the fridge goes back, it's laying on the tempered and the Archer IGR. All right. Now what I like to do as well is on the edge, I go not just the baseboard, but I go a little bit higher. All right, about a foot or two. All right. So now that we sprayed everything, baited the areas up here, lastly we're gonna do is we're gonna use our baits to make sure that we give them food and things inside here. So first, with your FC Select, I like to put a couple pea-sized drops here. Just a couple here on the edges. Maybe go, you know, just a couple there on the edges, just like that. And then lastly, in the same places where I use the 565, I grab my Avert here and I make sure I puff this inside that part here. One or two puffs. And then I come over here. One or two puffs, just like that. Shoots it into the motor where they're going to be hanging around at, and that's it. Make sure that you put the fridge back, and then I would kind of spray around the fridge as well, just kind of like you do a baseboard spray, just around the fridge. That way, everywhere, right? If there's roaches crawling towards it, roaches crawling out, they got the spray. They're in there, they got the bait. If they're you know, coming on the outside, you got the gel bait. You got gel bait there. Anywhere around this fridge is now a kill zone, and that's why you want to always treat good around the fridge in this manner. All right, so just a couple additional pointers when it comes to fridges. You know, depending on how severe it is and where they've decided to nest, you know, you may want to get some of these edge points here. You know, right here, they'll crawl up on here. Sometimes the wiring, all of this is just kind of taped on here. So kind of where you see this tape, they'll nest here. Not a bad idea to put a couple drops in there. Sometimes they'll be in here in this water line. Maybe get around the edges of that, okay? All right, and then if you go to the front, on these hinges, guys, sometimes it gets really bad. These hinges typically just have this covering here. Easy. All right, put a couple drops in there. All right, make sure you're helping them out, you know, because then that's how they get into the fridge. When they open it up and they're all on this, all up here is how they get into the fridge as well. So make sure you're looking for, depending on the severity of it, you want to make sure you do that. All this paperwork, all right, they're gonna love hanging around this paperwork. So maybe you take it off, tell them to just kind of, you know, keep it off of there. As you're removing them, you're finding them. Again, you're grabbing the vacuum. Vacuuming them up like that as well. So that's how you treat the kitchen. typically most kitchens are going to be like this, but you want to make sure that you don't forget about the other spots in the house as well. You don't forget about the dining room table where they eat, or the breakfast table. You know, just kind of like you treat like a cabinet underneath. That's where they're going to be hanging around. A lot of times I've removed them from the kitchen, but they still see them, and it's because I've forgotten the dining room table. Bedrooms. Now, they shouldn't be in the bedrooms if they don't have any food or water in there, unless it's a really bad infestation. But if they are in there, nice sense, just like the cabinets behind those drawers, in those corners, those cracks and crevices. The bed doors, the bed frames, you know, you want to check that. Sometimes you have to lift up or get underneath it. Bathrooms, cabinets similar to like the sink cabinets. You want to treat them exactly the same. Plumbing access points right by the actual sinks in the top corners, the front corners as well. You know, treat them the same way, because that's exactly the same way that they're living in there like that. Closets, like we talked about, the pantry, similarly as well. You know, if they're keeping everything out of there and it's not too bad infestation, this is the only spot where they should be at. But bad infestations are going to be everywhere, so treat them everywhere, vacuum everywhere. And then also you want to make sure you baseboard spray the whole house as well, just to be on the safe side. At least the first floor, make sure that you're doing that, because that ensures that they're not going to spread anywhere as well. All right, let's talk about these outlets, because this is potentially a hotspot as well for the German roaches. So everybody's got their multi-tool. Most of them just have one, maybe two. Just quick, easy removal. And you want to first check to make sure, obviously, you have your vacuum ready. So as you're removing it, you're vacuuming every spot that you see that there's roaches. Here, there's going to be hanging around here in these cracks and crevices, and they're going to get all up in here, right? So if you see that there's roaches, guys, we're going to grab our bait, okay? Our FC Select, we're going to put some bait there, just several drops. If there's really heavy, just put several drops. You know, pea-sized drops instead of putting just globs, you know, lines. You know, that's the best way to treat, is just drops, okay? And then you maybe want to put, you know, a few here, just like that, you know, and then you're going to replace it, okay? Now, if you do not see any activity, this is the only time where you're going to be using this. If you don't see any activity, just couple puffs. Now you want to make sure that both with this and with this, you're only touching rubber, guys. This is an electric current. If you curious about it, ask Rico. He can tell you, or Jeremy can tell you, what happens when you go metal to metal on this. It's not fun. So make sure you have that rubber part. Put the rubber dust in there, just one, maybe two puffs, and then that's it. And then you close it. You don't want to ever do both of them at the same time. It's either the bait or the dust. Bait when there's roaches, dust when there's not. And then you and then you just put it back, and then that's it.